Okay, well, before we even get into today's episode, I'm shook that this is literally the second time that we're meeting in person.
Yeah.
Literally, we have met once at a bodybuilding show.
That was in Melbourne. I remember
Melbourne.
you came up to me and I felt like I'd already known
We knew each other. So we're basically besties. So welcome to the podcast. If for those who don't know who you are, tell us who you are.
Okay, my name is Alana Coomer. I'm 28. We discovered on the way here.
That we're not 23.
We're not 23 anymore. I feel like whenever I get asked my age now, I'm like, wait, how old am I?
Yeah, you got to think about it.
28, yes. This is my last year of being in my 20s, probably 29 this year. And 30 next.
Whoa.
I know.
She's older than me. I just turned 28, so I'm still a baby.
I'm a December baby, so just turned 28. So yeah, I've got more time. Definitely.
You got time.
But I think I'm going to thrive in my 30s. I feel like there's
Honestly,
so much stigma around that. But
yeah, I've had a few conversations with people on the podcast, especially, and like they all say they love their 30s.
I feel like why not? I feel like it's going to be the best
years.
Get better. You're just more sorted, you're more emotionally mature, you're more financially secure.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just going to be the best years.
Yeah, I'm ready for it, but I'm also like,
it.
I also want to thrive in the last few years of my 20s before we hit 30.
For sure.
For sure.
Yeah. So essentially I am an online coach. I specialize in general population as well as bodybuilding, comp prep coaching. I am a competitor myself. My last show was in 2019, so a little while ago, which I'll delve into later in the podcast, I'm sure. So I was a pro WNBF competitor. I've also published a book called Now What, which is about navigating life post-show. And yeah, that's pretty much all about me.
That's a really like big biography though. There's a lot of things in there. A lot of impressive things as well, like a published book. Like I don't think I could ever even string a sentence together.
No way.
Look, come on, I've not eaten today and it's now 4 o'clock.
You need to get some food into you.
Not write a book. But so at the beginning of every episode as well, we go through 4 questions.
Okay.
And the fourth question is different for every single guest. So what did you want to be when you were growing up?
I wanted to be a teacher.
Oh.
So yeah, I'd always wanted to be a teacher. I would set up my little whiteboard and do lessons for my family and my grid.
So you're somewhat still in the same industry now with like helping people and teaching and all that sort of stuff.
So it was pretty much always the same growing up. I wanted to be a teacher, and then as I got a little bit older, I knew that I wanted to specialize in physical education. So that was pretty much what my plan was. And then obviously things didn't go according to plan.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing personal training. So I guess I still liked teaching physical education, but to a smaller group that had better behavior management.
And that weren't like grubby and like snotty and sick all the time.
Very true.
Very true. Now you coach amazing women.
Absolutely.
And what is your death row meal?
My death row meal. Ooh, that is a tough one. I feel like I'm definitely a savory girl over
same.
Sweet. I feel like you just can't go wrong with like a dirty burger and chips.
That's a good one.
And a Pepsi Max. None of this.
Do you know I'm a Diet Coke girl now? Very rogue for me.
That's very rogue.
But delicious.
When did you?
Within the last week.
Okay, but you're also in comp prep, so I don't trust your judgment.
I'm only 5 weeks in.
Still don't trust.
Yeah, fair, okay. What is one non-negotiable in your day?
One non-negotiable. I feel like coffee. My morning coffee would probably be my non-negotiable.
Some people do really wholesome things like, my morning walk or watching the sunrise. I'm like, guys, it's my coffee.
Yeah, my $7 iced latte.
Macca's is a $5 iced latte. Just ask for no sugar syrup and you're good to go.
Okay.
That's a hot tip.
Good to know.
You can have that from me first. If you get
on a budget,
let me know.
We love to see it.
We just don't want to be spending probably $1 million on coffee.
Very true. I convinced myself that I was going to start making them from home. Bought a coffee machine, everything. Did not taste the same. So then I bought a coffee machine, the pods, and still bought the $7 coffee every single day. So I felt even worse.
I'm ready to throw my pod machine in the bin and go for like a full proper like grinder machine, like the full pro thing. Like I know how to do it.
Do you?
Yeah, but I'm just like I love the love going to a coffee shop and the people knowing my order and be like, hey Georgia, how you going? How's work? I'm like, guys, I feel famous when they go in there and they know my coffee order, and I'm just like, I don't think I can give that up.
It does make me feel like a big deal, but you're being noticed in the streets now.
Guys, I'm getting noticed in the wild from this podcast. So bit of backstory, what Alana was talking about just then, is I had a girl come up to me saying, I recognize you from Instagram and the podcast, and she was asking me about the podcast. So if you do see me in the streets, say hi. I'm very awkward in person, and I'm very awkward when someone asks me if this podcast is me, but definitely say hi.
It makes us feel like a big deal.
It makes me, I told my sisters that their sister is famous. Like it was the highlight of this week for me. So it was definitely a really nice thing. So
watch this space.
Watch this space. Who knows where I'm going to end up? We're blowing up, baby. So final question. It's a would you rather.
Okay.
Would you rather your foundation be 2 shades too dark or 3 shades too light for the rest of your life?
Can I blend it?
Nope. That was a really logical answer though.
Well, yeah, if I could blend it. Am I allowed to fake tan? Or I'm just the same tone?
Just this, like, your normal, like...
I feel like most would you rathers are like a yes or a no. And I'm like...
No, there's no, like, so it's like, if this is your normal color, like, this is the color it's, like, 2 shades darker than.
Oof. I feel like I would look like a sick Victorian child if I was 2 shades lighter. So I'm going to say 2 shades darker. Yeah. And maybe wear...
turtlenecks.
Little turtleneck sweater.
Do you want to know what my answer to that would be? I would go 2 shades light, 3 shades lighter.
Okay.
And I would bronze the heck out of my face.
Oh. Okay. Well, I didn't know that was an option.
Well,
should have been my next question.
You weren't quick enough. So, all right. Yeah. Okay.
Where did that question even come from?
I don't know. I told you I'm a little bit delulu at the moment. So that just came into my head and I was thinking about it on my car ride this morning and I was like, I'm going to ask that question today.
It's the best way to be.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you have competed in the past. 2019 was your last show. For those who haven't seen your Instagram, I strongly urge you to go and look because her first pinned photo, every time I open your Instagram page, I'm like, holy shit. When you say abs by Alana, there is definition and meaning behind that because when you think of Wonder Woman, what you picture, not Gal Gadot Wonder Woman, but picture what you would want Wonder Woman to look like a strong, buff, blonde chick that is coming to save you from a burning building, you would picture Alana.
Wow, my head is about to explode right now.
You're so
keep
welcome.
Going.
Do you want me to keep going? Because it is insane. Like every time I open and I think it's your one of your shoot photos and then when you were in hospital.
Yes.
That photo. That I'm like jaw dropped every single time.
Yeah.
Like it
They're
doesn't
like, shouldn't
get
that photo be the other way around?
Actually, no. So going back into that, comp prep, pro status, how many years had you competed? I know you had a little bit of time off now.
Yeah. So my first show was in 2016.
Okay.
Now going into my first show, I was so naive. I knew nothing about the industry. I didn't have a coach. I literally I remember scrolling on Instagram one day. I saw this girl who competed and I was like, I want to do that.
Right.
That is on my bucket list. Obviously not realizing
what goes into
what's actually required of you.
Yeah.
But I also think the standard back then was a lot different.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it wasn't as high as it is now, obviously because the sport was still developing.
Yeah.
It hadn't been around for that long. I did a bikini show and the division, really the requirements were just sort of a lean toned bikini body that you'd see on the beach. That was basically the requirements.
Whereas bikini now is like a whole other thing.
Yeah. So I feel like each year the standard just gets higher and higher.
Yeah.
But yeah, back when I competed, I think I did a 12-week prep.
Wow.
I didn't know what a macro was.
Wow.
I Googled bodybuilding.com, followed the meal plan, I guess, that was on their website and just sort of made adjustments based on what I was thinking. And I wasn't a personal trainer at this time. A bit delulu.
Yeah.
But
that's a little bit shocking.
Got the job done. Yeah, I know. So
did you do well in that first season?
I only did one show and I was on stage once.
Okay.
I didn't place. I don't think I was in the right category based on how my physique was looking. But considering I did a 12-week prep, I was pretty impressed with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I got into the industry, but I wasn't deterred by not placing at all.
Yeah.
I was so motivated. I was like, I loved that.
Yeah.
That was so much fun. I loved just the whole process. Like I loved, eating well and I loved training and I loved seeing my body change and I just loved the whole glitz and glamour of it as well of the day itself. So yeah, I just felt really proud of myself and it just gave me, I think at that point in my life, something to focus on that I really needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's for a lot of people though. Like bodybuilding, you either with your first show, you either decide then if you love or hate it, and it can go either way, and there's kind of no in between because of everything that goes into building up to that. Yeah. And then as well, it's like it is very consuming, but also for some people it is what you need. Yeah. It is like that thing that will give you that purpose. Yeah. And I don't think that's a negative thing.
No, I don't think it's a negative thing at all. I think it's channeling it into something positive. I think where it can become a negative is post-show when you have let that consume your entire life and then you're
what do I do now?
Yeah, which is why I wrote my book. So yeah.
Publish author.
It's a little shameless plug right there.
We should have your book like sitting next to you the whole time, and every clip that goes to you, it's just going to be you and your book right next to you. We should have done that. Damn it. Lesson learned. That's how I'm going to blow up. I'm going to have your book next to you. Reference. Everyone that comes on this podcast, bring your product.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I didn't think that through, did I?
Nah, we didn't. We were too ready to get going.
But yeah, essentially that's how I got into competing in first place. Yeah. The second time that I competed, I think the person I bought my bikini off, she was speaking to me about the coach that she worked with, and that's how I kind of figured out that there are actually people who coach clients for this sport, because I knew no one in the industry. I didn't follow anyone on social media aside from that one girl who did that show, and I really just didn't have much of an idea of what I was doing. So essentially from there, reached out to that coach, worked with them, ended up placing, I think top 3, top 5, got a few first places as well.
Did you still do bikini?
So I did bikini and sports model. Oh, no, sorry. I did fitness and sports model for those shows. I don't think I was big enough for fitness at that point in time, but I was...
You were too big for bikini.
I was too big. It was the abs the whole time.
Those abs by Alana.
Everything about me was tiny, but I just had the abs come in. Yeah, I had very strong ab definition that came in quite quickly. So that kind of ruled me out for bikini, but then I probably needed to have a bit of time off to have a productive off season and gain some muscle. So I actually had the size required to do well, but I still did well considering. And then the following year, that's when I started dating my boyfriend at the time, and he ended up, I was just prepping myself at this point. He took over the prep, and I ended up getting my pro card that year. Wow. So I got my pro card in 2018 and then had my pro debut in 2019. Yeah. Yeah.
And do you think that there will ever be a comeback?
I don't know.
That was a little bit of a not a no.
I get people say the competing itch, and I feel like everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When you say that.
If you've competed and then you have like a few years off. I mean, I've done back-to-back years of prep. Yeah. So I'm like, I can afford like a time off. I mean, this is definitely my last year competing, but I definitely know like even after
you've ruled that out? You said definitely last.
This is definitely last. Like 100% there will be no more shows after this, and I'm really content with that. But I also think like
hanging up the heels.
Hang them up. But I also think like even with like it'll be over a year between when I stepped on stage between last year and this coming show. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm already itching to get back up there. Yeah. Like I definitely can sense it. So
yeah. Well, I mean, it's been about 6 years for me.
Yeah.
So, and
it's itching.
I didn't anticipate for that to be my last show. Essentially, that happened right before COVID. I was also having issues with my back. Was diagnosed with spondylolisthesis, which, for those who don't know, it's a spinal condition where your vertebra slips onto the one below it. Wow. So I had an 11 millimeter slippage, and I was trying to manage it with conservative measures for probably 2-3 years until I required surgery. Yeah. So that was the reason for my time off. Plus, no one was competing as well because of COVID. Yeah.
That old thing.
Yeah, that old chestnut. So I had my first surgery in 2022, which failed. So 9 months later, I had to get the exact same surgery. So the first surgery was a posterior approach. So from the back, just one incision, and they essentially just put a cage in there with 4 bolts, or maybe they just put in 4 bolts. I'm not sure with the first surgery, but anyway, it was not successful. My bone was supposed to like knit together, and it just didn't. Yeah. So required the second surgery. The second surgery was a posterior and anterior approach, so back and front, plus a bone graft from my hip. So that was quite invasive and also very daunting because I didn't know if that surgery would improve things or not. Yeah. So it was pretty much either stay the same. It's kind of like that familiar, what is it? It's that unfamiliar. Oh, familiar.
Comfort in the familiar.
Yeah, or familiar hell versus an unfamiliar heaven. Yeah. People prefer to stay in the familiar hell because that's what you know. And I didn't know if I was going to end up worse after the surgery either. But
and that was a possibility?
It was, but he was quite confident that it would at least provide a bit more stability. And without having that surgery, the bone would not fuse because the bone was just not fusing at that point. Yeah, my body was just almost like rejecting the surgery. So the bone wasn't fusing, and it had been 9 months by this point. And generally people start to show signs of fusing by like 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, okay, so you're well past that point.
But it can take up to a year and a half to fully fuse together. But the fact that it wasn't showing any signs by 9 months was alarming. Yeah. So then I had the second surgery, and I think by 3 to 6 months, it was showing signs of knitting together. And then the last ultrasound I had, they confirmed that it was knitted together, and so they said that I was fused. Yeah, I think I was around 9 months post-op by that point. And yeah, they said I had fused together, which was positive. Great. Yeah. So I'm really glad that I had the second surgery. Yeah. But yeah, it was.
And you're back training. You're back doing all your usual movement patterns and everything.
Not necessarily. I feel like I do have limitations still. Yeah. And I am very mindful. I do still experience flare-ups, so I'm not completely pain-free. But I can pretty much do most movement patterns. There are just things that I won't do because I just don't necessarily think it's worth the risk. Yeah. I do find it quite hard to progress in compound movements. Yeah. Initially, I thought that was more of like a fear-based thing, but I definitely do sort of experience flare-ups if I go a bit too hard. So I just have to be really, really mindful of that. Yeah. So my training intensity is quite low. Yeah. But I mean, I would rather that and doing what I can than not training at all.
For sure. So. And it's only been It's only been about a year now.
So I think
Oh no, we're 2025. We're not 2024 anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. It'll be 2 years in June.
Wow.
Yeah. That's like been a year and a half.
Really fast, so.
Yeah, it has. Yeah. That's gone crazy. But the whole rehab process took a long time because you can't lift a certain amount of weight until around 9 months post-op. So it was quite a process. I was going to the hospital twice a week for rehab for 3 months straight. And that was 3 months of no activity after surgery and then 3 months of rehab. And then, I started working with an exercise physiologist outside of the hospital as well. So I think, just to build more confidence, I think, was the biggest thing. Obviously, pain tolerance was, something to be aware of. But, the biggest thing for me, I was just scared. I was scared to train. I was scared to bend over and touch my toes. I was scared to re-injure myself. I was scared that, it wouldn't fuse if I did something wrong or... Yeah.
Does that start from is there a trigger thing like an injury, or is it more just like nothing you could really have controlled in order to have that initial slippage?
Yeah. So essentially my surgeon said it was most likely congenital, so something that I was born with, but it is common in gymnasts, and I did gymnastics growing up.
Right. Yeah.
Not at like a very high level or anything, but I did do it my whole adolescence. Yeah. And I'm quite hypermobile as well, so I don't know if that contributed as well, but probably something that I was born with. Maybe it was.
And then obviously the gymnastics probably added to it a little bit, and then over time training, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, just training stress and things like that. So I definitely think that my body was just structured that way, and then over time certainly just got worse.
It's so shitty as well when it's the things that you actually can't control that are the things that generally put you in the worst position.
Yeah.
But the positive is that the second surgery went well.
Yes.
I remember following along during that whole process, and I was like, this is so much more intense than I ever thought it was. I remember you saying you were going for surgery, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay, surgery. And then you're like, surgery.
Yeah. And I just felt like such a Debbie Downer as well. I think all my content was just solely around competing and more, I guess, motivating, sort of inspirational content in terms of training and nutrition and, what I was doing with my physique and things like that. And then to go from that to not being able to train, not knowing what to talk about, not knowing, why would people want to work with me now when I can't even train myself? I suffered from a lot of imposter syndrome surrounding that.
Yeah. But did you find that, I feel like as well your content kind of was obviously reflecting that at the time, but it also was then something super relatable that I feel like clients probably were drawn to.
Yeah, I think
you still have a business,
which is a good thing.
We're still growing.
I definitely think that it probably opened up a new type of clientele because I guess when you're competing, it's sort of that all or nothing mentality, very much at it 100%. You kind of, whether you like it or not, you are treating all of your clients like athletes, and you almost kind of hold them to that sort of same standard which you got to realize for majority of people, like they just want to live a healthier and active lifestyle. So yeah, I definitely think it sort of broadened my perspective of the clients that I was working with, and also just, I guess, being more empathetic to people's situations and realizing, you know, there are certain things that are holding people back from, you know, achieving their health and fitness goals, and how can we navigate that so that we can still make it possible for them. Like I try not to look at my limitations or focus on them, instead focus on what I can do. So I guess just approaching each client based on their needs and what they're wanting to achieve.
Do you think if you hadn't have gone through your surgery and that whole phase of life, do you think you still would have been very much in that every client, whether they're comp prep or gen pop, is treated to the same standard? Or do you think
I don't think I like necessarily treated them that way,
or you had just like that expectation that they were I get what you're trying to say. It's like almost, you know what your goals are, you will do whatever it takes to get there. So if you have a client that say they want this but their actions are doing that, you're like, well, what's going on here? Like what you're saying,
there's
and
a
what
disconnect
you're doing.
between what you're wanting to achieve and your actions.
But then it's also like potentially for that client, they're just like, well, I want to achieve this in the long run, but I'm not willing to sacrifice this other thing in order to get that. I want to make this other thing work. Whereas comp prep, you don't get that other thing. Like that goes.
Like you make those sacrifices. So I've definitely always been very kind with my approach. But I think, that expectation in my head that I'm like, okay, but if you want to lose weight and you've got a birthday party this weekend, don't eat the cake.
Like make a choice. Like,
make a choice that aligns with your goals. But if you do want a more balanced approach and you're happy with a slower rate of loss, sure, eat the cake. So I guess just meeting people where they're at.
And I think as well, like it's a maturity thing as well. Definitely when I first started 2020 coaching, I thought everyone was as serious as what I was. Like I think I'm very much 100% all in everything I do. Like I'll try my best. I'll do whatever it takes for me to get to wherever I need to be. So I think then when I first started, I was the same. Every client was going to do the same thing. But now I'm like, I'm also encourage that lesser approach. I do in quotations, but like I want my clients to enjoy their life. I don't want them to be living my lifestyle. Like my lifestyle right now is very curated and very custom to what I want to achieve. But I want my clients to actually be like having a really cool life and doing all these fun things. And I think a maturity thing as well, but then also like going through preps and seeing the sacrifices, and then the other side, like the post-comp life as well. You just don't want that for people.
I think I also haven't ever had a period, I guess, of balance until after my shows, because I was competing consecutively for so many years. Obviously, like I'd have my off season where I had a bit more flexibility and things like that, but I never necessarily just had like long periods without tracking or anything like that. So I guess just finding that balance for me between, you know, still caring about my physique and my health and fitness goals, but also enjoying life and making memories and things like that. And you sort of don't realize like how much you're missing out on until you actually take a step back from competing. And like I would still go to all of these events when I was competing, obviously just like wouldn't eat. But you know, you wouldn't be as present because
especially like deeper into the prep. Like I posted yesterday on my Instagram that like I was still going out to the footy with my family, just took my food, they ate. Like we've done that the last 2 years. And I'm like, for me, that's normal. For my family, me eating out of a container, eating a different meal is normal. But like the later in prep I get, like I'm just not going. Like you just don't see me. Like so I get it. Like you do miss out on things, but then I'm also very lucky. Which I guess some people
that people are understanding.
They're just like, okay, like this is a short time thing. Like once you're done, you'll be back.
I feel like everyone's different. For me, like I would still always show up to these events. I just found that I just definitely wasn't as present because I was kind of thinking like what I needed to eat, or you know, I was quite hungry, so I didn't feel as like as there.
Your mind is elsewhere.
My mind
or you're just not there at all. Your mind's just nowhere.
You're
just
sure.
beyond depleted, and you're just like, well, brain's exited the building. We're no longer communicating. Words don't happen.
My body just said, I'm a check out.
And my physical being present.
Brain checked out.
But So going back to the question maybe 20 minutes ago.
Sorry, queen of going off on a tangent.
No, it's so fine. Competing comeback.
Okay, that was the initial question, wasn't it?
That was the question. That was question one.
That was, wow. Okay, so that, if I was to compete, I would consider FMG.
Yes.
But I'm also at a stage in my life where I'm really just enjoying balance I love sort of just eating what I want, fueling my body, having enough energy, getting into training and just enjoying the process. I think because for so long I wasn't enjoying training because I couldn't do so without pain. So I think just, finding that love again in the past couple of years, I've just really enjoyed doing. So never say never, but maybe.
Maybe one day. We'll see. Do you feel like you're getting that joy almost out of putting your clients through it? I know you've got a girl competing in FMG. Yes. I think it's like 3 weeks away.
Yes, April 5th.
And then she's doing an international show as well?
Yeah, in August.
I remember
30,
that. And she did like the plane and the plane didn't work or something like that. That reel was so funny. So are you finding that you're getting that joy for the sport and for the lifestyle and all of that? You're still within it. It's not like you're not competing and you've just like exited the building, no longer a part of it.
I still feel fulfilled through supporting my clients through that journey. And I think it really helps that I've had that experience as well. And I guess I've seen so many competitors have such a negative experience with bodybuilding. So I like to work with my clients really closely to ensure that they have a really positive experience with the sport because it's so rewarding. Like I honestly credit bodybuilding to everything that I've sort of achieved. It's given me so much discipline. It's, connected me with so many different people. It's pretty much why I'm on the path that I am on now. So I definitely think there's so much to gain from bodybuilding. Yeah. And I just want everyone to have just as positive experience as I did. Because I've seen it go south with a lot of people and that makes me upset.
Do you mean south during or south post?
I think it's a combination of both. If you don't have a good relationship with your coach or if you don't have a good relationship with your food, if you don't have...
Even with a partner?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm so shocked. I get a lot of compliments actually that like my husband and I, our relationship, when I can confidently say does not change when I prep or when I'm not in prep, like we're the same people. I will still help him with his food. Like I love to cook for him. I'll cook for him pretty much up until we get on that plane in America, and then ordering his own food is his own responsibility. But like I don't really shift in that. But then I've also heard a lot of negative things, and I've also seen it firsthand. Like the amount of couples that unfortunately split up during a prep because one party doesn't understand that energy will go, libido will go. Like I won't be cooking your food or whatever it is, something so simple. It's just so sad that is something that happens for a lot of people.
And I think that comes down to two things, just based on what I've seen. One is that your lifestyle is just too far removed from comp prep. So when you go into comp prep, it's just like a complete identity shift and complete routine shift. And you're not resonating with your partner anymore. You're completely neglecting them. I think it goes both ways. Like you both want to be able to put in effort and meet each other where you're at. Otherwise, comp prep can definitely affect you. And then two, I think ego as well. I think that people start to receive a lot more attention when they compete. They're feeling a lot more confident in themselves and their body. And then they may not feel like their partner's at the same level. Yeah. That's a bit controversial, but...
No, I definitely agree. And I think as well, it's something that I've had people reflect back to me as well. And I'm like, I feel like this might sound a little bit mean, but they have openly said to me, I was getting so much attention and so many people were messaging me during my prep. As soon as I competed, it all went away. Yeah. Or like they built their accounts when they were competing. When they didn't compete, they lose followers. I'm like...
Yeah.
Well,
people love the journey.
People love watching me compete. One, it doesn't get me any gain within like my actual business. Yeah. So online, I don't classify my business because that's not what converts to me making an income. Yeah. It definitely gives me something to talk about on this podcast with friends, whatever. But I definitely don't consider followers gain in any way that are beneficial. Yeah. Other than, like you said, ego. But I think as well, people just forget that people will hype you up as soon as you compete. See you later. You don't know anything about like your life.
And I think that can be an adjustment period for a lot of people if you derive a lot of your self-worth from external validation. And then when that stops and then people start seeking validation through other things or supporting themselves emotionally, coping through food, and then that just further perpetuates the cycle of binging and restricting and then, you're not getting that validation online. So
it definitely is a hard phase to navigate. We'll be going into this will be my 4th ever post-comp, but my 3rd show. I feel like every time I am getting that a little bit better. And I think that's something that if you are listening to this and you are someone who is prepping, it gets better every time you do it. Yeah. First time I was diagnosed with binge eating, became binge free within the same 12 months. Yeah. Second time, my only goal post-show was to not binge.
Yeah.
Successfully did that, but gained pretty much all the weight I'd lost, I had gained back.
Did that make you fearful to prep again because you had that experience? No. Okay.
So I was really determined and this prep as well, like most of the goals I have set myself, yes, I have a goal in terms of how I want to do at the show and all that. Most of the goals I have set myself are for beyond the prep.
Yeah.
So I think it probably could have been really something that deterred me because the binging was so like consuming. Like I had gone off social media for the first time ever since running my business for a few months. And I don't do that.
There's so much shame around it, I think.
I don't think it was shame for me. I definitely was able to talk about it. I can obviously talk about it now because I'm not that person. But I think for me it was confusion. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But then I had gotten the work, done the work, gotten the help to realize that I had actually had a binge and restrict cycle for many years before I ever even knew what bodybuilding was. I was definitely someone who throughout my childhood would binge and restrict. And I didn't know what it was. So for me, it was just this confusion. And I was just like, I was so consumed by watching other people successfully come out of prep or successfully stay lean but eat 3,000 more calories than they were eating.
Then what is success post-show as
well?
Yeah,
so it's like, well, those girls to me were successful, but then in conversation with them, they weren't able to eat out. They had fear in eating out after show. They had to eat their meal prep even once they were done competing. So it's like success is obviously different to different people, and I just had to remove myself from it completely.
I struggled with that a lot too because you almost use that as a metric for your own reverse diet success. So I know I would, log into Instagram and then someone would put up a story and, 6 weeks post-comp, only 2 kilos up. And you'd be like, only 2 kilos up. How is she doing
I'm
it?
10.
Yeah. I'll do you one better.
Yeah.
10.
Literally. But I think so, definitely first prep that never made to stage was when I fell into binge eating. Second prep was my only goal was to not binge. Yeah. But I had gained all the weight back.
Yeah.
Then second time on stage was the one that I just did. My goals were to not binge and to not gain all of the weight back and to maintain at least 10 kilos down from where I started. And I successfully did that. So like now I've obviously set new goals for this prep. Will be like obviously not to binge. I haven't binged since 2022. Yeah. Will be that. It'll be to maintain a good physique. Like I'm talking within 10 kilos of my stage weight. Yeah. Like it's just the goals that I've set for myself. And I think having now do it for the 4th time, I've got the belief in myself that I know what it's going to feel like. I know what's required of me. I'm not going to be traveling for 3 weeks after my show. Like it's going to be 3 days and then home. Like there's definitely things that I'm putting in place to better that experience. And I think it's obviously something with experience, time, a good coach, a supportive partner, a supportive family, supportive friends. Like it's all of these things. Yeah. So I think it's really sad to me, especially like just going back to like people not having that support in prep to then also feel like they're losing it after and then losing themselves. It's very sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people lose themselves in the process of competing.
I think it happens and it's quite expected to happen to some extent. But it's like, how far are you going? How far are you disconnecting from who you actually are?
Yeah. And I think it's why it's so important to have multifaceted goals as well. Because if you're just focused on one goal and that's all you ever talk about, like it's amazing to be driven and, excited about a goal, but then there needs to be other sides to you. And I think that's something as well that I had discovered when I stopped competing. I was kind of like, who the hell am I?
Like, what do I do?
What do I do for fun?
Yeah,
like what do I like?
Yeah. No, definitely something that people used to say to me. Yeah. They used to be like, you need to have other interests. And I'm like,
I go to the gym.
Gym is my interest. Like, what else do I do? Like, I watch Gilmore Girls.
I love
every year. I like, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So I definitely used to struggle with that. And I'm like, I still am, I think, struggling with that. And I'm like finding those interests. But then it's also like, for me, my work and building this podcast, building my events, all of this stuff is my new interest.
Yeah, I love
that. I think it's like, it doesn't need to be hobbies and activities. It can be work.
No. Yeah, absolutely. I love my job.
Couldn't be. Definitely told couldn't be, but I'm like,
really? Okay.
Yeah, because it's like I was always told that I needed something that I could do by myself, and really strange reasoning why behind it. But I'm just like, whatever.
Fills my cup, yeah.
Does me good. Love hosting my events.
We're actually for sure, if it makes you happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you had struggled a little bit with your post-show, which obviously is what I believe would have sparked you to write a book about it. So tell us a little bit about that, about like how you what happened for you, what that experience was like, if it was positive the first time or where all that led.
Is this from each show or just from my last one?
Whichever. So if you feel like you got better each one, like how I had my first and then progressed and like what things you learnt and all of that sort of stuff, and then what led you to writing your book.
Well, I think the first show I was just so naive because I'd obviously prepped myself. So I obviously had no concept of a reverse diet. And then, you know, the second you stop competing, everyone wants to go out to eat, everyone wants to celebrate with you. So yeah, I really had no concept. I didn't even have a concept of a plan, as Donald Trump would say.
Yeah, you're just like, YOLO, we're doing it.
So I just sort of reverted back to my lifestyle before, which quickly proved to be the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
I think I gained 9 kilos in 6 weeks.
Wow, yeah.
And like my stage weight was quite low as well. So that was kind of an adjustment. And then I just found that I was quite self-conscious. I think I went on a Kentucky maybe after that. And I just remember going on the Kentucky and telling people that I did bodybuilding, and everyone was like, oh, like, do you?
Yeah.
And I just felt a bit self-conscious coming back from that trip because I gained a bit of weight while I was on that holiday and going back to training. I didn't feel comfortable in my own body, but, you know, we put a shirt on and we got it done.
Yeah.
So you kind of just have to get out of your own way when you're stuck in that cycle because you feel bad, so then you don't go and train.
Yeah.
And then you might comfort yourself with eating foods that you know don't align with where you want to be. So I had goals for myself. I wanted to start working in the fitness industry. I wanted to get my personal training qualifications and I wanted to compete again. So I think I remember writing my diary that I was like, I just want to have the actions of someone that aligns with who I want to be in the future as a personal trainer and as someone who is fit and healthy and active and a competitor. So basically, I kind of just had to call myself out on my own BS that my actions weren't aligning with the person I wanted to be, and that's why I was feeling so miserable. So I, sort of directed all my focus into competing and also my personal training qualifications. The second time, my coach, I didn't really hear from them post-show, so I didn't really have any reverse dieting phase. I didn't really have much of a clue, so kind of went off on my own again. Gained a bit of weight that time as well, and then treated it as an off season, did my third prep, and this is where, you know, I was so much more consistent with my tracking even in my off season as well. And that reverse diet was great. Like I had a really, really positive experience with that. I just set new goals for the next show that I was competing at. I knew I wanted to grow my shoulders and my glutes and my calves, so that was sort of like the main focus, which, you know, led to a really successful reverse diet. One, I actually knew what a reverse diet was this time. And two, like I had something to work towards because I knew that I wanted to grow and I knew that weight gain was necessary in order to do that. And then my last ever reverse diet was also a good process as well. I think I got quite lean ahead of time. So we'd already kind of started reverse dieting. Post-show, I was in America and Mexico for 3 weeks, but I was only around I think I was like 2 or 3 kilos above my stage weight. After that, we did so much walking. We were doing like 20,000 steps a day, not intentionally. It's just kind of what you do when you travel and you're walking around. So I feel like I had a really positive reverse diet experience then too, just built my calories up really high. But I guess the main thing that I struggled with was I just got to the point where I was like, okay, you know, my back's not feeling great. I'm not going to be able to compete for a while. I don't really know what my goals are or what I'm wanting to work towards. I don't even know if I really want to track anymore. But I kind of kept treating that as an off season for like 2 more years. And then sort of around the time of my surgery, I was like, I don't want to track. I got to the point where I was like, you know, I'd put 100 grams of chicken breast on the scale and it would be 100 grams. Like, you know, you've been tracking for so long. It's like, you know what these portion sizes look like. And I think just sort of building that self-trust that, you know, it's going to be okay if I don't enter this in an app. You know, I know what I'm doing. I've been tracking my macros day in, day out for years and years and years. So sort of just building that confidence in myself that I could do that. And, you know, I wasn't gonna undo all of my progress in doing so.
So you never really fell into that whole like binge restrict lifestyle or anything like that?
No, I was always very kind to myself. Like I'd always just treat the following day as a fresh start. And I found I probably only struggled, I wouldn't say it was binge eating, it was more so just overeating. Because
I like that you say that, but I'm very big with that. Even with my clients, I'm very big on, there is a very distinct difference between binge eating and overeating.
Yeah, because of course you're going to overeat if something's delicious. Like, that's a very
normal
normal
think that's a normal thing.
reaction.
And I don't ever say to a client who's overeaten, well, why are you binge eating? Because I think it's a very different thing. And I think you're in control.
Yeah. I think binge eating is obviously characterized by not being in control. Normally there's some sort of shame around it or secrecy. And thirdly, they just,
you can't,
it's a recurrent thing. Like it's something that happens, you know, and it's not a once off.
You can't, like, as someone who has gone through it, and I want to say quite intensely, very quickly, you cannot stop it. Yeah. You don't want to be eating the thing, but you cannot stop it. Like, and that is, I want to say, the most embarrassing part of it, because it would be in front of people that it would happen as well. Yeah. Like, to the point where they wouldn't really know what it was. My husband knew. He was always so supportive. He would discreetly, in front of people, take food away from me. Yeah. So it was lucky to have that support where that was what was making me aware that I was doing it, because I wouldn't know. Yeah. So I thought, oh, me eating like my food, my husband's food, and then my friend's food was all normal.
What do you mean that's not normal?
But like, it literally got to the point where like it would have to have food taken away from me. And that was just like, you can't control it. And that is not overeating. Yeah. That is unconsciously losing control.
Yeah. And it's like you're just not present or and you just can't stop. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said you were not binge eating, just more overeating.
I definitely think, that distinction's important. Yeah. But I would say I was just overeating on certain days. And I think it was until I sort of reached that set maintenance point where I'm like, that's where my body wants to be. You know, prior to that, I've always maintained quite a lean physique, but when I was a bit more shredded, like, you know, those sort of like hunger pangs, like, oh my God, I'm starving. I felt like a bottomless pit. That was definitely more frequent than when I got to a certain level of body fat where I was like, my body just felt comfortable at that and I didn't feel the need to do so. Yeah.
So with your clients that you do coach to stage, do you find you experience that quite frequently, or do you feel like because you're having such a close relationship that with them throughout their prep, post-comp is always somewhat of a positive experience for them?
I've always found, it's pretty much a positive experience. Obviously, everyone has their own struggles. I think because I'm so open with my clients and we sort of build that rapport and that trust, they know that they can sort of tell me anything and, you know, I'm not going to judge them and I'm not going to make them feel bad for it. So, and I've also, seeing as I've experienced that myself, I know sort of how to approach the reverse dieting phase. I more so approach it as like a recovery diet instead because, you know, at the end of the day, you're pretty much going to end up at the weight you were at prior to stepping on stage. Yeah. As much as people want to say, oh, you know, like I only want to be 5 kilos up from stage, it's like you're most likely going to be at the maintenance period that you were at prior to jumping on stage as well. So I guess just being accepting of that, and I think drawing out that process just makes it so much more miserable for the client. So I essentially just let them know that, you know, we're going to go to your new predicted maintenance and we're going to make adjustments from there. I don't expect 100% adherence because you're not competing anymore and you're a human. You know, you want to celebrate all of your hard work and, you know, forgive yourself for that. Like, don't beat yourself up for wanting to do these things. Obviously, that is going to result in a bit of weight gain, but that is necessary in order to grow.
Yeah, and I think as a competitor, I'm probably sure you can agree with this, it's going from that 100% to then having you're allowed to not be 100% is a really confusing thing to experience and go through because you're like, well, I can be 100%. I know how easy it is to be 100%. But then you're like, I'm also a little bit confused and a little bit like,
discipline go out the window?
Where did that go? Like, honestly, like I think that's something that I need to work on probably, like as like a self-reflection piece for me would be like, you are okay to do that. It doesn't mean that you're less of an athlete or your results are less worthy of celebration or whatever it is. But it's like, I think that could be a really big, I mean, I don't coach comp prep clients. I mean, I have my own experience to go off and then stories. So it's like, I feel like that's definitely something that I hear people find challenging. Yeah. And I
think the best approach to have, and one that I've always had, which I think that made me have successful reverse diets, was just starting each day as a fresh start. Yeah. I think when people start to restrict themselves the following day, so, you know, they've gone over their calories, they feel like shit, the next day they're like, okay, I'm going back to my comp prep macros just for a few days until I'm feeling, you know, lean again, and then I'll go back to these calories. They're restricting themselves, setting themselves up for a binge. They're perpetuating this binge restrict cycle, and that's when they end up with a terrible relationship with food. So, I just let my clients know, like, you enjoyed some food, like you've worked so hard for the past, you know, 6 to 12 months, however long it was. Allow yourself to enjoy it. move on. You didn't kill anyone.
Literally.
You didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And just start the next day on track with your meals. And I think also shifting your focus as well and just focusing on protein and overall calories really helps too.
Okay.
I think not having that pressure of having to reach certain carbs and fats, it just takes a lot of the pressure off. And also just keeping your meals fairly similar to what you're eating in prep, just having bigger portions of that. Obviously, it does require some sort of rigidity in the coming weeks post-comp, because when you treat it like a free-for-all, like you're so much more susceptible to gaining weight quite rapidly. So I think obviously still having that structure, still having that plan in place, just set yourself up for success, because otherwise, if you don't have a plan, then
you're
leaving things to chance.
Lose all sense of what is next.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why that sentence came out like that, but like, I feel like as well, if you don't have a plan for anything, like you mentioned, your first prep, you didn't have a plan. So it's like, you didn't know.
Yeah.
There's just so much unknown.
It's like, I knew not to go to McDonald's, but that didn't
That
stop
was
me
it. That still happened. But like, even with anything, like with the prep, if you don't have a plan, you don't know where you're going, whether you have the best coach in the world or no coach at all. If you have no plan, you don't know where you're going. So it's like, why does that kind of go out the window for post-show as well? And I think as well for anything, not even just competing, like I'm talking anything, like people have a goal of whatever that is, whether it's a business, whether it's getting a degree, whether it's all of these things, you have a plan. So I think it's just as simple as following it. And it is such a simple thing to do, but also equally hard.
It's hard. I think the hardest thing for most people is just what balance actually looks like to them. And, you know, for someone who was so all in with comp prep, I had no concept of balance. I didn't know what to do when someone would just ask me out randomly to go out to eat that night.
Yeah.
But I hadn't logged my,
what do I do?
What do you mean? But then I was like, then you have that guilt as well, because you're like, oh, well, I'm not in comp prep, so, you know, I should be able to enjoy these things. And then that's kind of like that inner dialogue is just like.
It's so confusing. Something that I did that I found quite useful during that phase, like where you don't really know what normal is or what balance is my husband has an amazing relationship with food. Yeah. Like he always has. He's always someone who doesn't need to finish everything that's on his plate. Whereas I'm very much like, no matter how full I am, if there is a fat bowl of hot chips in front of me, no matter how full I am,
there's always room.
I will finish them. Where he's just like, oh, just tell the waiter to take them. I'm like, no, but there's food left.
Yeah.
So I would replicate his eating patterns.
Yeah, okay.
So we traveled for 3 weeks post my show in America. Yeah. I just replicated his eating habits the whole trip. And I mean, to some people, it sounds really strange. And like, I've had that exact same reaction when I've told a few people, but like, I just didn't know like being so fresh out of prep, I had not cooked a meal in 5 weeks for that whole time. Yeah. I had gone through the hurricane. I had gone through all of these different things. I was in another country on a plane, all of these things. It's just like that for me worked. Yeah. And I think that then also really quickly taught me how to distinct between hunger, mindset hunger, like all of these different things. And I think that was like finding what worked for me without like people's opinion and without people's validation, without my coach's opinion at that time, because I'm like, I know what I'm like and I know that I will just eat. Yeah. Like, I don't know what full is. Yeah. I reckon I'm someone who could easily, to this day, and I want to say for the last 10 years, I have said I could do the 10,000 calorie challenge with ease.
No issues. Yeah.
Like, with ease. So it was like, for me, I needed something as a reference point. Yeah. And I think if you're someone who does struggle with balance, trying to find someone who potentially could be that for you might be a valuable tool. I don't think I've ever really heard people talking about it like that, but it just...
No, but it's interesting though.
It worked for me. So, but like when I say his relationship with food is like, to me, it's shocking. Like, but like shocking in like a positive way, because I'm like, I've just never been that. Like, I've always been told, you finish what's on your plate. Like, it's so interesting. Obviously, it's a me thing to work on, but like, it's very interesting that that's what successfully worked for me. And it was probably the most successful reverse that I've had.
I love that.
But it was just such a simple thing to do that worked.
Yeah, just need to rent out your husband. Give him a borrow.
Hire him. We'll set the fee quite high. It will be like 10 grand per day. Like, you can have him for however long you need him for in your reverse. We'll just make him really rich.
Perfect.
And then we'll travel to wherever you need us.
Amazing.
If you're in America, if you're in Canada, if you're in Europe, if you're in Australia, let us know. We'll be there. We'll send you an invoice.
Love it. I think, you're concept of hunger and satiety cues is just so distorted
So distorted.
You don't really know. I think also when you're so used to eating to numbers and eating everything on your plate, like, you know, when you're on prep, you're like licking your container, you're that desperate.
Yeah.
To go from that to being like, okay, like, am I actually full? I remember just having a moment post-show where I was eating at a restaurant and then I was like, oh, I think I'm done. And I was like, there's still food on my plate. And I was like, huh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But like for me, doing that with my husband then led me to having that. For the first time in my life, I was like, I'm actually feeling full.
Yeah.
Like even beyond coming home and beyond doing that, like I actually had stopped gaining weight pretty quickly once we had got home because we had done this phase of what we were doing while we were traveling, but then to come home and actually feel full for probably the first time as an adult without like going insane, to me was just like, this is wild.
Is that peace?
Like there's no food noise in my head. What are you talking about? Like, and it is such a relieving thing to experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So relieving.
And I also don't think I realized that until this extended period of not tracking was how much food noise I had before.
Yeah.
I feel like I've always handled my preps really well. I've always, you know, had a good relationship with food, been great with tracking. But yeah, there definitely was a lot of food noise that I didn't really realize until I'd kind of taken a step back from it. I was like, wow, I feel like my relationship with food now is better than ever.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I have that knowledge and awareness, but I'm also like, okay, you know, I'm hungry now or I'm full now.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just have that awareness. Yeah.
Do you feel like that potentially is something that could stop you from ever competing again? Potentially
that's
the
my
risk
only,
of ruining that?
Yeah, I don't think I'd risk ruining that, but I'm also just like, I just enjoy it now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know if I would.
You don't really need to experience hunger or like licking a container. It's just like, well, you're hungry, you eat. You're not, you don't. Yeah.
And I also feel like I'm kind of at a different stage in my life too, where I'm like, oh, you know, I have a new relationship and, you know, I love going on dates and eating out and doing all of these things. So I've been loving focusing on that. And just loving training for the enjoyment of it. So I don't really know what purpose competing would serve. I think the only kind of reason I would want to do it is just to prove to myself that I could after my back operations. But yeah, I don't know. But then I'm also like, I don't have to prove anything. So.
Yeah, it's like who do you have to prove it to?
Yeah.
But I also get it because my reasoning for competing, like similar to yours, obviously I didn't have back surgery, like spine surgery.
Yeah.
But like it's very much to prove to myself.
Yeah.
Like I don't compete in bikini. I don't compete in a category that many actually classify as bodybuilding. I've received a lot of projections from people saying that I'm not an athlete, that I'm not a competitor, that I'm not all these things. Whereas my prep is just as long as everyone else's. I probably, not discrediting anyone's work at all, because that is not what I am about, but I probably have to work a little bit harder than other people to get into the condition of the standard that I want to be in.
Yeah.
So I think I need to be so grounded in my reasoning, which is it's a very selfish reason why I compete. Like, and I think, like you said, wanting to prove it to yourself is an okay reason. And I think people sometimes don't understand that, and people think it has to be for an external thing. But I think it's props to you for being like, well, this is my reasoning for potentially wanting to do it again, but I actually don't actually need to.
Yeah.
Whereas I think your business is, you had that as a foundation, whereas I never did. So it's like people could probably really fall into the trap of, this is my identity. I have to continue this. I have to hold on to this idea of who I am. Whereas like you've actually matured and grown. Yeah. I don't want to say away from that, because you're still within
I know what you
the
mean,
industry, but it's like, that's not who you are. And I think that that's a really nice, as someone who does coach, comp prep, a really nice distinction to have between what your work is and who you are.
Yeah, and I think because I identified with that for so long, that was almost my reason for wanting to compete again. It was because I was like, oh, you know, like business is going really well and I want to keep, you know, on that trajectory. But I'm like, you know, I don't need to compete in order to do that.
Yeah.
It's not, if anything, people who compete are probably doing their clients a disservice because they're not as attentive, they're not as with it when they are competing, because their priorities are obviously elsewhere, which is completely understandable. And you can kind of only give your clients the best of what you can give them at the time. So yeah, I definitely think like I'm a far better coach now with the experiences that I've had, and I don't necessarily have to step on stage again to prove that. Yeah. And that was more just like my own, you know, self-limiting beliefs, I think. Yeah.
And I think it's something that a lot of people don't understand.
And it was even with content though, I was like, now that I don't compete, what do I post? Like, what do I talk about? Like, this is all I've ever talked about. And now I'm like, my back hoits, like
the screws in my spine. Like, what are we talking about? Yeah, no, I definitely can understand that, because for me, even like now this year with content, like finding what I do, like being a lot more purposeful with what I post.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, okay, like, what do I talk about? My own weight loss? Like, that's boring.
They're like, heard that before.
Like, you've heard that for 5 years, but it's like, well, what do I talk about? So it's like, I think this year I've really stepped into I am the transformation coach.
Yeah.
Like, I am, yes, I have successful lost over 50 kilos, but I'm also, this is how I can help you. And I think as soon as you find that thing, which I'm like, I'm sure you've found that, as soon as you find it, like, everything just feels so much better.
Yeah, and just feels a lot easier and more aligned as well.
And
like,
more fun.
Yeah, I feel like I've just been enjoying posting this year without any like stress or anxiety around it. I feel like, the past couple of years I was like, oh my God, like, what do I even talk about? Like, what are people, like, everyone who followed me was because I had this big competing journey, and now, like, I feel like I'm completely different. And then obviously, like, engagement sort of tapers off once you start competing too. So
definitely,
I was like, I don't really know. Like,
my like engagement when I'm in America competing to when I'm like home on a normal day, a third.
Yeah, crazy.
It's ridiculous.
But it's everyone's in the same boat. Like, just hide those likes and post what you want, doll.
Just keep going. Don't worry about it. Or let the people see the likes. Let them see how like popular you are for like a week, and then everyone else just they disappear. Literally. But it's very interesting. It's nice though to be able to have that identity and just like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Which is so underrated. So what would be some advice that you would give to someone who potentially is in prep right now, or about to start prep, or about to head into their first or maybe their fourth prep? Like, what would be some advice that you have for them in order to like have a successful and enjoyable time whilst they're dieting and whilst they're getting ready for stage, but then also beyond that?
I think just accepting that prep is a choice. I think a lot of people treat prep as if it's, you know, something that they're forced to do, when they're absolutely not. It's not anyone else's problem that you're dieting or need to train or need to do cardio. And I think when you make it other people's problems, it makes the whole process so miserable. Like, you've chosen to do this, so just embrace the suck. Like, it's gonna suck at times. And at the end of the day, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. Like, no one is forcing you to prep. So I think prep is what you make it. If you're going to make it this miserable, exhausting, negative experience, and that's what it's going to be. But if you know, like, I've signed up for this, it's going to be mentally, physically draining, taxing, everything, but it's going to be so rewarding at the end of it. Like, I feel like I've always had such positive prep experiences, because I'm like, I know it's hard. Like, I know it's difficult, but I also know that I'm capable of doing that.
Yeah.
And, you know, you've just got to enjoy the process. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And then what would be one thing that you've learned about yourself throughout your preps?
Ooh. I think I'm just very resilient, just in the way that I handle things and navigate setbacks, and I'm quite adaptable in the way that I work around things as best I can, any limitations that I have with my back. And I feel like I'm just quite headstrong. Like, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I think that's something a lot of people learn about themselves. Definitely what I learned about myself in prep, that I'm so much more capable of more than I ever thought I was able to.
Yeah, it's that self-belief, I think.
Yeah. And then final question, because we've been apparently talking for an hour.
Crazy.
Do you have
dinner reservation?
She's got dinner at Arbery Afloat, everyone. What would be one unpopular opinion that you have about the bodybuilding industry, or potentially prep, or anything?
I think that bodybuilding can often be used to disguise disordered eating habits. Yeah.
And if you had a client come to you,
as a prep.
Yeah, for sure. If you had a client come to you that potentially you could sense that was happening, would you take them on board to stage?
I would let them know what I'm thinking, for sure. Yeah, I feel like I'm very upfront. Even if someone approaches me and they want to compete, and I feel like they're going to require a longer prep if they have a higher rate of loss to achieve, I will always be honest, because I'm like, I'd rather you just take the time and enjoy the process, and, not potentially rebound and gain all of the weight back. And quite often I'll see those people go to other coaches who say yes, which is completely fine. But then I'll get a DM after their prep that they've rebounded and had a terrible experience competing because they rushed the process.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very interesting. We'll leave that there. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
so much for flying down to Melbourne to be a part of our event. I'm so grateful for that, and it's very
excited.
I'm very honoured to have you here. So I'm very excited to hear your talk tomorrow. This podcast will be going out a few weeks after the event, so it already have happened. I'm sure it went well. But thank you so much for listening. Make sure you share this podcast with potentially someone who is competing, potentially someone who maybe is struggling a little bit post show. But other than that, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.